Hey guys, it's Dan here. Today I'm going to reveal the 4 shades of Wander builds that you can safely start in 3.27. You will not find these anywhere, as these are exclusive to my collection from several years of testing. The best part about these builds are that, in case if you enjoy the new wand skills such as Kinetic Rain, you can safely transition into it with no difficulty at all. I've been discussing some of my ideas with several content creators, and you might have noticed from their recent videos. I'm very excited for Kinetic Rain. It's an insane skill, but unfortunately, I couldn't test these things at Grinding Gear Games as it's been a couple of months since I last visited the studio. So I'm going in blind into the next league just like you guys. But don't worry, if you stay with me, I'll show you guys how I made 2 mirrors at the first week of the Merc League. So the first Wander build is straight up Kinetic Blast, which a lot of folks from my previous video have been asking me. I understand that int stacking beyond 1k is difficult, and so is crafting a wand with dual influence. So I came up with a non-attribute stacker, which can be done in less than 1 divine a couple of days into the league. But some of the uniques I'm using could be quite expensive at the first week, which is why in this video I'm going to share some alternate choices you can make until you get those uniques. And later on you can convert all your life into Energy Shield and go full CI like what you see here. This is usually a very cheap wand, with great stats at the expense of no inherent damage, which is why we are stacking our flat elemental damage via these jewels, chest piece, rings, amulet, and the helmet. You just focus more on lightning damage, because that's more easier to scale. You can use any other wand with tons of lightning damage and stats like these if you get it. Replica Hierophant Ire will be quite expensive at the first week, so feel free to use stuff like an Impulsor or even a Lightning Coil if you can get enough lightning res. For the helmet, you just buy a Blizzard Crown and use Blessed Orbs until you hit a high-value cold damage. And as for shield, you want increased spell damage and chance to deal double damage. Remember, spell damage scales at 150% of most wand skills, which is a great way to increase your damage. This gloves is super cheap and gets you a ton of extra damage with no downside. You have to use a shield in order to charge or zoom through your maps, especially through breaches. You can get taming by vendoring 3 of the Barrack rings. It's quite expensive, but it's optional. My brother Fubby always buys his first Headhunter by farming the div cards for these rings on day 1. It's not like he's swiping credit cards for in-game currency, trust me. So, the rings and amulet get flat tier 1 lightning damage, along with some global crit multi and increased elemental damage. The belt is also optional. It just straight up boosts 2 of your jewel damage. Early on, you can use a Prism Weave, which is a super cheap unique belt. Since we are playing a Warden class, we have to make use of tinctures. These are still the most powerful flasks, which are readily available. You want one with crit chance, and the other with elemental damage. Finally, you can fix your strength requirement with a lethal Pride Jewel. You can also get some interesting points, such as double damage and crit multi with it. I'll link the final POB in the comments section. Up next, we have the Power Siphon Ballista Totem, which is best played on a Hierophant. It's absolutely easy to play, as you get to move around while your ballistas attack. And it is the only ballista build where you can use a shield to zoom through your maps. The build also uses a special item to gain Soul Eater stacks, which makes you bigger, faster, and tankier. We are automating our curses with Hex Touch support, which is linked to Bladefall of Charthus. That is a skill which repeats itself with no downsides or reservations, other than a bit of some mana. The single target and clearing speed is pretty chill, perfect for an ultimatum farming strat. This stuff is way more stronger than that Siege Ballista, cost-wise, I mean. I'm still working on this build, but I can explain to you the most important pieces of the gear. The first item is the Atziri's Amulet, which is super cheap and super useful, since we are a mana stacking build. Then we have the Coiling Whisper, which drops from the regular Incarnation of Fear. And now that they've made these regular versions much weaker, it's going to be readily available for everyone. An important thing here is that we have to reduce our skill effect duration as much as we can to make this work. We get a lot of that from the passive tree. We can get some more from this ring. Now, it doesn't have to be a shaper, as you can use a regular lightning damage to attacks over this variant, which only applies to shocked targets. Now, You might be wondering why we're using this Gloves from Blight. And that's because we get 2 additional totems without having to path all the way south of the passive tree for them. It's another one of those items most people don't use. It's quite easy to craft this wand. You just buy a fractured base, and then you spam your attack speed essence until you get crit chance. Then you apply suffixes cannot be changed, and then Orb of Scouring. Finally, you just multi-mod the last 2 prefixes. You have to complete 2 unique maps to access these crafts. One is the Putrid Cloister, and the other is Oba's Cursed Trove. This is very important to remember. Next up, you can get a 3rd additional totem from a shield with Shaper influence. Spell suppression is a bit nerfed, so at a league start, you don't have to buy items like Ancestral Vision Jewel. In this build, Healthy Mind and Light of the Meaning is extremely powerful. For the medium cluster jewel, you just need Sleepless Sentries for a permanent onslaught buff. The next build is so popular that it's played by most hardcore players, especially Ben. You can find tons and tons of guides here. I've just played it once and all I can say is, it's not my style. You are basically throwing a bunch of mines and detonating them automatically. Since you can throw multiple mines at once and stack throwing speed much better than attack speed, this is kind of stronger than a self-caster on a low budget. It's basically a simple setup. You have to link locus mine support to your power siphon, and then you link detonate mine skill with automation support gem. Skitterbots also helps to detonate when automation is on a cooldown. The build is quite powerful that you can focus more on your defenses than damage sources. Don't worry, I'll link my build in the comments soon. The biggest downside of this build, however, is that it's much slower than the other wand builds. Although you have a high throwing speed, your attack speed is slower for shield charging. There are ways to get around it with certain uniques. I'm sure you'll find some hardcore player with a guide for this one. The last wander may come as a shocker to you, and I'll explain to you why this one is a wander. It's basically a summon Holy Relic of Conviction Necromancer build. The thing about this minion skill is that it will only attack when you attack. And this minion does a physical spell damage in an area over the target. So the more frequently you attack, the more faster this minion does its thing as well. And the skill we are using to trigger them is not Lancing Steel of spraying. It's Barrage of Volley Fire. Because it kinda has the same frequency of attacks as what the Lancing Steel has, but it looks way more cooler. I know you guys love the look of it as well. Also, it covers a much wider area as well. But the real damage, however, comes from the yellow circles you see in the screen. That's the physical spell from the relics. It's pretty cool, but the downside is its movement speed, which being a minion build is not that surprising. Now, you might be asking, but why use a wand? The main reason is that we can get +2 to all minion skills, which includes the Holy Relics. That's a massive damage, and you're losing out on nothing here. Defensively, you get a ton of block, endurance charges, and life leech. You also get fortification and malediction from your animate guardian, which is perks of being a minion build indeed. The build was tested on an expensive setup, so I'll have to work on a budget league starter version. Hopefully that gives you a good knowledge about the current wand builds in Path of Exile. So stay safe. And remember, we are fighting against the oligarchy. Free divines for everyone.